Morning, this is Dave T1963. I'm out here out in the yard practicing shooting. Thought I'd make a quick video because one thing I hear a lot of people saying over and over again is go out and learn how to read thermals, but they offer no real advice how to do that. So I'm going to give you a quick tip on what I do when I'm setting up a spot. The first thing is I will get to two predominant winds. There's going to be a predominant wind 90% of the time, and then when you get a cold front come through in the fall, you're going to get a secondary wind. And where I hunt, predominantly it's going to be a southeast south wind, and then if you do get a cold front that comes through, it's either going to be a north or a northeast wind. So that's what I keep in mind 90% of the time. Now there are spots that I'll set up for like an east wind or a west wind just to catch a deer that's, that's not normal to them, so they don't react normally. They don't have it thought out as well. But when I go into a spot, let's say I'm setting up in a southeast wind. So I go into the spot, and I've got all kinds of YouTube videos that shows me actually out there scouting. And maybe I'll do this again later when I'm out scouting. But I'll go to my spot, and then I'll get on the downwind side of where I anticipate the bulk of the deer movement. Or I'll get a quartering wind. And what I try to do then is I try to give the deer, I pick spots where the deer has the wind where they think it's to their advantage, but it's usually just slightly off, like slightly quartering to them. And that allows me to play it. But then I'll get on that downwind side of that. And what I do is I start dropping milkweed, and I start reading what the thermals are going to do. Now, one thing you can't just climb up in your stand, drop milkweed, and you can't get at the base of your stand and drop milkweed. What you need to do is see where that milkweed's traveling to and walk that line. Keep going, and about every 10 yards, drop another group of milkweed. See what it does. Follow that out, because what you'll find a lot of times, especially if you're in flat country or if you're in a deep hub in hill country or in mountainous terrain, you're going to find a lot of swirling. So it does no good to get downwind of a deer and think you're working the thermals and the wind if you're dropping milkweed and you see that 30, 40 yards down the trail, it cuts and goes back. So you really need to follow that milkweed out. I would say follow it out for at least 100 yards. See what that wind is doing. And if possible, if you can put an obstruction, like a bluff, a wide creek with steep banks, a thicket that's impenetrable for a deer with big horns, if you can find some kind of obstruction downwind of where you want to set up, that's even better. But once again, I'm telling you, don't assume, even with strong winds, you have to think of canopy, you have to think of the thickness of the trees, you have to think of the structure or the elevation of the land. All that can have an impact on what your thermals are doing, and it can work to your advantage also. You might go down and it might be showing, let's say that you're setting up really close, really tight on a wind that's favorable for the buck, and your scent's just blowing off. But you start walking that thermal out and you start dropping milkweeds, and you notice 10 yards from where you want to set up, it makes a hook to the right or to the left that's ideal for you, that takes your scent away from that buck's nose. So once again, learning to read thermals is easy to say, but it takes some time and effort out in the woods to actually put into practice. And so what I encourage you to do is get out there when the wind is in your favor, that not in your favor, but it is your predominant wind. Look for those setups and then test the thermals. And another thing, do it during morning and evening. And then the next time you come in, maybe come in midday. So you start getting an idea, okay, with the predominant southeast wind in this spot that I want to hunt, here is what the thermals are doing. And just start recording that, and pretty soon you're going to start learning over time to be able to visualize, hey, I've got an opening over here My thermals are carrying the wind just slightly off that opening, but I know that the wind is going to push it through that opening. And you get to learn these things, just like you can learn, when a wind hits dead on into like a cedar break, a bunch of cedars growing close together, the wind is going to do something. And you can kind of start to learn to speculate, okay, I assume, and then you can go test it and see if that's what's true. So it's not as simple as watching a YouTube video or reading a book. It takes some footwork and some dedication to every time you're out there scouting, every time you're out there hunting. Use that milkweed, use your scent bottle, whatever you're using. And scent bottle, I'm talking about your little powder bottles. Use whatever you have available and go and see what the wind is actually doing. And it can be doing something different at 20 foot high than it can be at the base of your tree. So once again, it's about getting out there, learning what wind does. I'm going to say something here and people probably laugh at this, but wind has rules and parameters that it lives by. Even though it's an inanimate object, it don't just do things that go against the natural laws of gravity, physics, and all that kind of stuff. So you can learn how wind reacts. Okay, it's not 100% like when you're talking about an opening, how much that'll affect your thermals and stuff like that. That's just a matter of getting in there and testing it out and seeing what it does, and then using that. And what I'll say is, for the beginner, set up downwind. Always set up downwind of where you expect a deer to. If you're hunting a destination point, let's say an acorn flat, get 30 yards downwind of that initially until you really start learning your thermals and stuff, especially for that spot. And then in years coming, you might can hunt that with a slightly quartering wind that gives the buck even more confidence of coming in there. Don't try to learn all this in one season. I'm 61 years old. I've been out there in the woods since I was about 12, 13 years old, trapping and hunting since I was 15. And I'll tell you that I'm still learning. Every time I go out into the woods, I'm learning. But I'm going to say something else about that. That's a goal of mine now. I hate that this came so late in life, but one of my goals is to actually learn something new every time I go out into the woods. And I'll give you a great example. I was setting up some mineral licks the other day and some mock scrapes, and I ran across a plant I hadn't seen before, or at least I hadn't seen the fruit before. And it had a nice little round berry on it, or what looked to me like if you ever seen an immature persimmon or plum, that's kind of what it looked like to me. It was green, so I really didn't know what that was. Well, as soon as I got home, what I did is I took a picture of the leaves and I took a picture of the fruit. And as soon as I got home, I went online to a plant identification and I put those pictures in, and it's soapberry, which is very common here in the Southwest, but I just had never seen the fruit. And soapberry is good. There's two things to learn about soapberry. One, nutritional value, it's not that high in the whitetails preferred list. Even birds don't really. Whitetails will occasionally eat the fruit, but it's not consistent enough for it to be a draw like you would say a locust tree. But what you'll notice about soapberry is they're kind of like a plant that its roots puts up new shoots, and before long, in the right areas, you can have a stand of soapberry that offers tremendous bedding. So if you find a soapberry thicket, that's a good place to look for some rubs or something like that, or beds. So once again, it's about every time you get out in those woods learning, and then for thermals, just keep dropping that powder, keep dropping those milkweeds, learn what it's doing. Don't be afraid to get out there in the woods. You can spook deer, sure, but you've got to be able to hunt effectively too. If you're sitting in your tree stand and you don't understand what thermal's doing, probably a 90% chance you're getting busted anyway. Might as well go in there one time with the goal of learning. I am going to learn what the thermals are doing while I have a southeast or a predominant wind, so I can know how to hunt this area effectively. And then get out there and drop that milkweed, follow it out, see what it's doing, Go to where you anticipate the buck coming in, drop milkweed there, follow that out, and learn what that area is doing. And that's going to make you a far better hunter than just picking a spot and sitting in it and not having any idea what your winds are doing. Anyway, I said this was a quick tip. I guess it didn't turn out to be so quick. I'm just kind of relaxing. Show you what I don't have a big area. My neighbors are cool. He's a hunter too. So I've got a dirt pile that I built here. I don't shoot anything but broadheads, usually in August and September. So let me scan in. I'll take a piece of white paper and I'll put a nail in it or a screw, or a 4-inch drywall screw, and I'll screw it into my bank. And then I shoot. I've got my wall drip set up over here. Let me show you. There's my wall drips. I'll bring it out here in the yard. A lot of times I'll shoot behind this rose bush right here. And then something else that I do is I've got a ladder. Yeah, I don't get up high. I get up maybe 6-7 foot, but that allows me to see. I'm an instinctive trad bow shooter, so it allows me to see if my point of aim is changing as I get to different heights. Sometimes I'll even climb up on the roof, and then once a week I'll go out into the woods and I'll actually get up 10 to 15 foot high and see how it does. And what I've found is my brain calculates all this, and out to 20 yards, there's really not that much difference. I might miss by an inch, inch and a half, which isn't going to matter when it comes to putting down a whitetail, but that's what I do. I'm out here in the yard. I shoot every single day, getting ready for hunting season. But, you know, a lot of you never shoot your broadheads. And here's what I'll do. When I put together my hunting, let me turn this. When I put together my hunting arrows, I will make up 6 at a time. I'll fletch them. I'll go ahead and mount a broadhead on them. The broadhead that's going to stay with that arrow, I will get out here into the yard and I will shoot it to make sure it shoots that broadhead accurately. And something else I do, you know, I'm kind of anal about this. I weigh my arrows. They're all within 5 grains. If I need to take a little bit more off the broadhead, or if I need to add 5 grains, I'll add one of those little brass washers, but I keep my arrows weighing the same. I purposely fletch and orientate my feathers to where they clear my shelf of my bow really good. And then I also orientate the blade of my all my broadheads so they're the same. So my arrows are identical. And that helps with the sight picture. I got up here this morning at 6:15, shooting at that dirt pile before there was any light. That's why I used the little white pieces of paper, because I want to know, shooting instinctively, how well I can shoot in low light. And I will tell you, I didn't miss that paper by 2 inches all morning during practice. And this is 17 yards. From my ladder to that piece of paper, 17 yards, which is my average shot on whitetails, 15 to 17 yards. So I know my shooting, there is no way a compound shooter is shooting their pins and stuff at the times that I'm shooting at. There is absolutely no way. So get out here, practice under realistic. But if you're not shooting your arrows with the broadheads you want to shoot, and don't assume from one broadhead to another that it's going to fly the same. Now you get in some of these precision made like removable blade broadheads, and I think that they're closely matched. But for traditional archer, when you're getting in different broadheads and you're trying them, don't assume they're all going to fly the same, because it's been my experience they don't. Get out there, shoot your hunting arrows with the exact broadhead you're going to hunt with, and then go in once you get it flying exactly where you want. And you might need to do a little bit of knock tuning on that. Once you get that flying exactly the way you want, go in, sharpen the broadhead up. It's that simple. Anyway, folks, I hope everyone's getting excited about the hunting season. I know with all the crap going on in the world right now, a lot of people are down. A lot of people are worried and stuff like that. And, you know, the Bible tells us don't worry. Put your faith in God. Things could get worse. There's no doubt about it. But here's what I'm going to say. And please, if you're a sportsman, if you care about the sport, listen to this part. Go out. Make sure you're registered to vote right now. Don't wait. It's getting to the point where you're going to be hitting cutoff dates. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go out and vote early if at all possible. Put it on your calendar, put it in your cell phone. Go do it. And if you don't, make sure you clear off November 5th and make sure you get to the poll. They're going to try to get illegals to vote. They're going to do whatever they can to steal this election again. Get out and vote. There is nothing you are doing out in the deer woods. I don't care if you're chasing a 200-inch deer. There is nothing out in the deer woods more important than voting this fall. Folks, they are trying to get rid of our arms. They're trying to get rid of our hunting rights. They're trying to get rid of our access to public land. They're trying to turn it over to the UN, for God's sake. Sportsmen, wake up. One poll that I read said that only about 40% of sportsmen go out and vote each year. 40%. What could we do if 80, 90, 100% of sportsmen? And why would you not vote? If you love hunting, if you love fishing, if you love being in the great outdoors, if you love having access to public land, why would you not vote? Don't wait for November 5th to where it's one day pass or fail. Anything could happen on that one day. Go out when you got a week of early voting and get your damn vote in. Really, folks, I mean, this is as basic as it gets. If you're so damn hung up on hunting that you can't take the time to vote, you don't deserve to hunt anymore. Period. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent I didn't mean to go off on, but gosh dang it, get out there and vote, folks. Anyway, hope everyone has a blessed day and a blessed season. Dave T1963 out.